Hello, I'm Esther Gido-Ewart. It's Tuesday, October 4th. This is Africa 54.
Children in Burkina Faso return to school following the country's second coup this year. We'll have a report. The pre-COP27 conference in the Democratic Republic of Congo discusses the failure by wealthy nations to keep their funding promises. And East African nations take action to stave off the outbreaks and spread of Ebola and Monkeypox.
Children are returning to school and the streets are calm in the Burkina Faso capital on Tuesday following a coup and its aftermath. The newly self-proclaimed leader Ibrahim Traoré seized control of the government from former leader Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Paul Ndiho has more.
Children in Ouagadougou are back in class for the new school year as residents seek some semblance of normality just days after the country's second coup this year.
Today is the first day of school. As you can see, it was an uncertain start, but thank God everything is going well, as you can see. The atmosphere is good, so we started with the roll call and everything is going well.
Burkina Faso is moving forward after its second military leadership change in 8 months. Army Captain Ibrahim Traoré ousted former military leader Paul-Henri Damiba, sparking a weekend of unrest as violent protests erupted in the capital. Two army factions battled for control of the government. Both a parent and a principal are cautiously optimistic about completing the school year.
We cannot be 100% sure that there will be no disruptions, but we dare to believe that as things have been going on, we can think that maybe we will be able to start and end the school year quietly. Yes, there may be some disruptions, but we dare to believe that we will be able to work quietly.
With a little worry given the situation, our wish and the wish of the parents is that everything goes normally as the authorities reassure us. We also wish them good luck for the first day of school, and I wish them that the year will be really effective.
More than 11,000 schools are closed due to conflict or threats against teachers and students in the Central Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin regions. As a result, thousands of children are missing school. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Citizens of Ouagadougou react to the change in the military leadership.
The coup d'etat for me is a good thing because our people are dying a lot. We thought he came to help us, but he didn't. He came for power, and so he has to leave. If someone wants to help you, he should do so. Otherwise, he should leave you alone. He must get serious and work. The leader must not talk anymore, and we will applaud him. We want to see him at work. To say that he will leave the place to someone else, no. What he did for the coup let him prove it by working for us. That's all we want.
I say it's good because if the person who took it can bring peace, that's what we want. Otherwise, it's not easy. Look, I went to market this morning and came back at noon. As for me, it is to get along so that we can sort out the country. Really, he has not worked well because the people in the provinces and even here are suffering.
Now, for more perspective on the implications of the coup in Burkina Faso, I'm joined by Bagassi Kura, VOA's Bambara chief. Bagassi, welcome back to Africa 54.
Hi.
Now, 2 coups in 8 months in one country, divided military in that country as it is. What are the implications for the civilian population?
Yeah, these 2 coups are happening at the worst moment for the country because since 2016, Burkina is attacked from all sides now by militant group. The country has lost almost 50%. These are government numbers, 50% of the territory. And then you have this army fighting each other with the first coup in January and then this one, which slow down everything in terms of fight against terrorism because it's hard to see how a divided army can trust each other in terms of capability because you don't want the other side to be empowered enough to fight jihadists so that the day they want to return against the other faction, the army, they have enough capability. So people are worried. Economically, of course, it slowed down everything in terms of investment. And the farmers, in most places, people cannot go outside of their houses because of the security situation. So that's in this context that these coups are happening and people really are praying that maybe this could be the end and that the forum that is announced, people can get together and finally find the right solution forward.
Now, you know, international organizations like the United Nations, the ECOWAS, the African Union were very quick to condemn this coup. But ECOWAS being the regional bloc, have they taken any step further to help out and kind of stabilize the country? What do you know from ECOWAS as of now? Yeah,
ECOWAS delegation arrived today. It was supposed to be yesterday, but finally they arrived today. They have been meeting for a couple of hours now with the new leader of the country, because in the communique on Friday when the news of the coup broke, ECOWAS insisted that the schedule that has been put in place with the previous junta, which is organized regular election by July 2024, that schedule be maintained. And the new leader say, yes, we will maintain that and even do better, have a shorter timeline, so that ECOWAS in Burkina, they say they are trying to assess the situation and see in which way they can help, because as we understand, the previous junta was reluctant to let other countries get involved much in the country's Burkina Faso's situation.
Wow, it's a terrible situation, definitely. Bagassi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bagassi Koura is VOA's Bambara chief. Islamic extremist fighters targeted the local Somali government headquarters in the Hiran region on Monday, leaving 20 people dead and 36 wounded, according to witnesses. The Somalia-based terrorist group Al-Shabaab is claiming responsibility for the attack in Beledweyne, a town located more than 300 kilometers north of Mogadishu. Somalia's government earlier announced that its international partners had killed top Al-Shabaab leader Abdullahi Nadir. More than 1 million Somalis have been forced to flee their homes in search of food amid the country's worst drought in 4 decades, according to the United Nations Refugee Agency. We get more details in this Reuters report.
Isaac Hassan has once again been forced to flee his home. In Somalia's 2011 famine, 4 of his children died from starvation, and the rest of the family fled to the capital, Mogadishu. He returned to his hometown a year later, but now, amid the Horn of Africa's worst drought in 4 decades, he's again joined an exodus in search of food. Hassan now lives at a camp in Baidoa city.
My wife died of hunger here, and I became helpless. All my livestock and crops were also wiped out.
Hassan is one of more than 1 million Somalis, according to the UN's refugee agency, forced from their homes. Over 7 million are experiencing acute food insecurity. Experts warn that a 5th rainy season is likely to fail. UNHCR Field Assistant Asmal Brahim says unaccompanied children are among those arriving.
Unprotected children and families and mother who is giving birth outside this area who does not have something to eat. I think it is very hard even to understand that situation.
Pastoralism and farming sustain over half of Somalia's population. But the parched landscape has resulted in the loss of over 3 million livestock from hunger and a lack of water. 70-year-old Osman Ibrahim Mohammed and his 13 children left their home after all his livestock died. They now live at a camp for internally displaced people in the southern town Doyle, where the bones and carcasses of animals litter the ground.
This dead cow was once a lifeline to a family here. This is how our animals have died. It is a terrible situation that forced us to flee. These are the remains of our livestock. Can you see they are all over the place?
He says he needs a home and food, but also support, so he can start the process of rebuilding his life.
That was a report filed by Reuters. Guinea last week opened the trial of 11 men accused of killing more than 150 peaceful protesters 13 years ago. The protesters were massacred as they marched at a stadium in Conakry against a presidential bid by a military ruler, Musa Dadis Camara. Their bodies were strewn across the stadium while more than 100 women were allegedly raped. Elise Kepler will join us shortly to discuss the human rights implications for the families of those killed. Those families welcome the trial, saying they have waited too long for justice. Now, for more on the trial and its implications, I'm joined live via Skype from New York by Elise Kepler, Associate Director of the International Justice Program at Human Rights Watch. Elise, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
You attended the court hearings last Wednesday. What were your observations?
It was really an incredible moment. This is something that the victims have been seeking for some 13 years since the crimes were committed, to see justice done, to see people punished for the crimes. And really a sight to behold, to have a former president, former ministers, and other accused before judges in a court of law on atrocity crime charges. This is something never before seen in Guinea and would be rare anywhere in the world, frankly.
At least 13 years, as you say, is a very long time. When should the families of victims expect to hear the verdict?
These trials are complicated and can take a long time, including to ensure that they are fair. The expectation here is that this trial will be many months, if not a year or more, and that's far from unusual. But I think the key here is that it be a fair and credible proceeding so that it can really satisfy the hopes and expectations of a meaningful justice for the victims who have been campaigning to see perpetrators held to account for so long.
We've seen so many places where people's rights have been violated, but what does this case say about Guinea's justice system?
There have been questions all along with this long delay for the trial to be held about what are the blockages to justice. It's important to note that the Guinean authorities early on indicated that they would try the crimes and that the International Criminal Court need not intervene to take up the case, that the Guinean authorities were able and willing. Yet we have seen a very slow and uneven progress. And time will tell if this can be a genuine and credible trial. It's important to also note that the country is currently ruled by a junta that took over in a coup d'etat last year. And Human Rights Watch and others are urging for this trial to be situated in a set of wider rights reforms to ensure that rights are respected in Guinea, and other trials for atrocities that have been committed that have yet to see any kind of justice delivered.
So what's next after this trial?
So I had the opportunity to attend the opening in Conakry last week. Proceedings were suspended or put on recess for a week so that both victims, lawyers, and the accused lawyers could have more time to study the file. The proceedings resumed today. And now we'll see. It's anticipated that there could be arguments raised by defense, in particular, about different aspects that need to be addressed. And then ultimately, witnesses will be brought forward. More than 400 victims have been heard by the investigative judges. And I am certain some of them, if not many of them, will be heard by these judges. There will also be opportunities to hear the accused give their information, and other witnesses, bystanders, for example. And then the judges will ultimately rule. So it will take time. These are mass crimes, complicated crimes, multiple crimes. Some may be implicated who were not there, who were not present, but actually had a role in the crimes. And the judges will have important work to do in assessing the evidence brought.
Elise, thank you so much for your insight into this. We'll catch up again and see what happens next. Elise Kepler is Associate Director of the International Justice Program at the Human Rights Watch. Police say 12 people are dead after gunmen opened fire on villagers in northeast Nigeria. The attackers, dressed as local vigilantes and carrying heavy weapons, invaded a herding village in the Bali district in Taraba State, gathering residents in the open before shooting them, according to state police spokesperson. Taraba is one of several northern states struggling with criminal gangs known locally as bandits who raid villages, looting and killing residents or kidnapping them for ransom. Some communities form vigilante militias for protection, but they are often accused of abuses and extrajudicial killings in revenge attacks. Devastating floods have destroyed farmland across northern Nigeria. Parts of West and Central Africa are also being battered by flood water, which has wiped out crops and worsened food insecurity in a region already struggling with economic fallout from the Ukraine war. Constant heavy rains have triggered the worst flooding in a decade, killing more than 300 people since the start of the rainy season and displacing at least 100,000, according to emergency officials. And Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency spokesman says flooding has been unprecedented due to continuous rainfall, with 29 of the country's 36 states affected. Ahead of the COP27 climate summit next month, ministers and senior delegates are meeting for talks in Congo, where the focus is on the failure by wealthy nations to keep their funding promises. David Doyle has the details.
In Kinshasa, the world's richer countries are being called out for failing to honor their $100 billion a year promise to tackle climate change. Dozens of ministers and senior delegates are meeting in the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital ahead of the UN's COP27 climate summit in November. On Monday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, speaking in New York, joined a chorus of condemnation of wealthier nations.
The actions of the wealthiest developed.
He said the collective commitments of G20 governments were far too little and far too late.
Current pledges and policies are shutting the door on our chance to limit global temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius, let alone meet the 1.5 degree goal. We are in a life or death struggle for our own safety today and our survival tomorrow. And there is no time for pointing fingers or twiddling thumbs. It is time for a game-changing, quantum-level compromise between developed and emerging economies.
The $100 billion promise made in 2009 has only ever been partially met and is due to expire in 2025. Congo's Environment Minister Yves Bazeba said she was concerned that the failure to fulfill commitments had become a matter of course. In an earlier interview on Saturday, she said richer nations should take responsibility, and the G20 accounts for 80% of the pollution in the world. Around a dozen activists protested outside the Kinshasa venue. They called on Congolese authorities to cancel plans to drill for oil and gas in its share of the world's second biggest rainforest, and in peatlands that store billions of tons of carbon. Congo, like other African nations, has insisted on its right to develop its economy by exploiting its vast natural resources. It has claimed it will minimize the potentially devastating environmental impact by using modern drilling methods and tight regulation.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Be sure to join us Wednesday for Paul Ndiho's technology report. Still to come, Heidi Adams tells us what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, why can't South Africa keep the power on? We'll explore how Africa's most developed economy and largest polluter is paying the price for its heavy dependence on coal. We'll also explore ways African countries can possibly diversify their energy resources. Join me, Heidi Adams, as we talk about energy on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Empowerment and humanity towards a better world.
Economic and social progress of every society.
Facts and information from key players rather than spectators in politics, business, science and technology.
City, rural, educated or underprivileged. We care and we listen to what matters to you.
Your voices are our voices.
In other African news, two major workers' unions at South Africa's state-owned logistics firm Transnet are pledging strikes that would start on Thursday after workers complained about low salaries. Workers have already turned down a 1.5% pay increase. In a bid to boost military efficiency, Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has replaced the Army Chief of Staff, Celestine Bala Musense, with Christian Chiwewe Songesha, a former commander of the Republican Guard. The U.S. Embassy in Juba announces a $35 million donation to the United Nations Children's Agency to fight malnutrition in South Sudan. It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Linord Moudou with the latest on a bird flu outbreak. Hello, Linord.
Hello, Esther. The Ugandan Health Ministry says the death toll from an Ebola outbreak has risen to at least 9. This comes only 2 weeks after the authorities announced an epidemic in the center of the country. In Sudan, authorities have quarantined refugees at Al-Tunaydbah camp in the east of the country after 3 cases of monkeypox were detected, raising the countrywide tally to at least 17. For more insight, I spoke with Donal Bisanzio, senior epidemiologist at the Global Health Division of the International Development Group, RTI International.
Here what we have is that we cannot protect population, but then all the activities, the intervention that they are performing right now, testing, contact tracing, isolation, is really what any country should do when they have an outbreak of Ebola. And Uganda is doing this in a very well way in the area where Ebola was reported, but also in the surrounding area, because people, they move, they can bring the virus in other places. So they should kind of create like a buffer around these areas and then protect their workers too.
What can be done to prevent this disease to continue to reemerge?
We really need to, kind of share, inform people that when they are in contact with animals, they can be a reservoir of Ebola. So that can be a risky type of contact. And usually outbreaks start with a spillover from the wild. So we should start to tell people just to be more careful when they do hunting and so on.
Is it always about bushmeat though? Are there other possibilities for such a disease to occur?
If we think about country, it can be also imported cases from other countries. So without really the contact with the reservoir, I'm not expecting to see any outbreak of Ebola. And then when you look at the last outbreaks and you trace back, you always see that trace back to an imported cases or someone that got in contact with some reservoir in the wild.
Now, let's talk about another zoonotic disease, which is monkeypox. Sudan is tackling an outbreak of monkeypox currently.
No, the outbreak of monkeypox in Sudan, so since they started from a student, then, got in contact with other people and so on, but still everything is ongoing. So the investigation is ongoing. Something that really is very concerning for me is that there are 3 cases of monkeypox in Ethiopian refugee camp. They now got isolated. So, and that is something that can become, a very big health emergency, because we know, people in the refugee camps, they live in not very good conditions and so on. Plus, right now there are 7 cases that they are even in the capital and in other places. So, and I'm expecting to see more cases coming. So Sudan is also kind of destroyed type of health system. Sudan gets some help, but then the point is we really need to have contact tracing again, and then isolation, and then give information. Information is also the key.
How do we fight monkeypox in Africa without the vaccine?
The only way that we have right now, so every single time that we have an outbreak, contact tracing, isolation, and then information. Those are the 3 key interventions. And I hope that the vaccine situation will change, because it's not fair for Africa not to be in the share of the vaccine. So that is something that we need to fix, really.
For a country like Sudan, in a context with limited resources and a strained health system, what should be the priority at this stage to contain the outbreak, to prevent it from spreading further?
The priority should be to get a vaccine, of course. That should be the first, because vaccines is cheap, prevent the spread, and then prevent also having people going to hospital or, getting home and infect other people. But without that, so we really need to increase, the strength of the health system, but also providing these contact tracing and isolation.
When you look at monkeypox in Sudan, Ebola in Uganda, and other outbreaks that are zoonoses, what does it say about the future of public health?
We really need to create a kind of system that can be useful to respond swiftly to these type of events. So they are getting more and more common than before. Now, the disruption of the forest, of the wild habitat, is also pushing these animals to get more in contact with us. Destroying these habitat is also pushing the animals to find, food and so on in our cities, and then is going to, increase these type of events, because now we are more in contact with them.
That was Dr. Donal Bisanzio with RTI International. And that's our show, our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Linord Moudou. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Lino. Be sure to watch Linord Moudou's health reports every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.